For almost 2 years, I sent $2,500 home every month. Money for the mortgage, money for utilities, money for my father's prescriptions, extra money when my mother said the roof was leaking or the heating system needed repairs. I never sent it directly to my parents. My mother said online banking confused her, so she asked me to transfer everything through my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe lived with them in rural Virginia. She promised to withdraw the money, pay the bills, and make sure our parents had what they needed. I trusted her. Then, at my mother's 65th birthday party, she raised a glass to Chloe in front of 20 relatives. "To the daughter who never abandoned us," she said. Everyone applauded. Then she looked at me. "Emily, I wish you cared about this family half as much as your sister does." The room went still. I looked at Chloe. She was wearing a designer dress she claimed she had bought with income from her online business. A gold bracelet glittered on my mother's wrist, Chloe's expensive birthday gift. 3 weeks earlier, I had discovered a credit card opened in my name, using my social security number and my parents' address. That afternoon, I had arrived at the party carrying more than a birthday present. I had 23 bank statements, copies of text messages, the fraudulent credit application, and a folder containing nearly $60,000 worth of questions. I stood slowly. "If Chloe is the daughter paying your bills," I said, "then she can continue doing it." My mother frowned. "What are you talking about?" I stopped the transfers. Chloe's face lost its color. My mother gripped her glass so tightly that her knuckles turned white. That was the first moment I understood that Chloe was not the only person in the room who had been lying to me. And before the night was over, I would learn that the money was only part of the betrayal. I grew up in a small town in southwestern Virginia, in a white 2-bedroom house with peeling paint, narrow hallways, and a porch swing that squeaked whenever the wind changed direction. My father, Robert Carter, worked as a mechanic at a local repair shop. By the time he came home each evening, his hands smelled of oil and industrial cleaner. My mother, Linda, kept the books for a neighborhood grocery store and managed our household with the same careful attention she gave every receipt. We were not poor, but every expense mattered. From the outside, we looked like a close family. My parents worked hard. We attended church. We ate dinner together most nights. Our relatives visited often enough that the house rarely felt empty. But inside that house, love was distributed unevenly. I was 3 years older than Chloe. I was quiet, cautious, and happiest when I understood exactly how something worked. As a child, I took apart radios, lamps, broken clocks, and discarded computers. I liked wires because they followed rules. I liked machines because they did not compare one person to another. Chloe was different. She had curly blonde hair, dimples, and the instinctive charm of someone who understood an audience before she understood herself. She sang in church, danced at school events, hugged relatives without hesitation, and knew how to make adults laugh. My parents called her their little sunbeam. No one had a special name for me. When Chloe performed in a school pageant, the whole family went out for dinner. When I received an academic award, my mother set the certificate on the counter and asked me to help Chloe choose an outfit for choir practice. Whenever I protested, even gently, I heard the same answer. "You're the older sister, Emily. You should be more mature." Maturity meant surrendering the last slice of cake. Maturity meant doing Chloe's chores when she cried. Maturity meant changing bedrooms, because Chloe was afraid of the tree shadows outside her window. Maturity meant pretending that comparison did not hurt. One Christmas, when I was 11, I built my mother a lamp from an old mason jar, colored wire, and a battery-powered LED circuit. I painted tiny white flowers along the glass and spent weeks adjusting the light so it would flicker softly instead of flashing. I wrapped it carefully and placed it under the tree. Chloe gave our mother a song she had written and performed with a borrowed ukulele. Everyone clapped. My aunt recorded it. My father asked her to sing it twice. Then my mother opened my lamp. She turned it over in her hands and pressed the switch. The light glowed warmly inside the glass. For one hopeful second, I thought she liked it. Then she sighed. "You spend too much time playing with wires," she said. "You should go outside and be more social like Chloe." I carried the lamp back to my room. That night, I placed it on my desk and watched its glow move across the wall. I told myself I did not need applause. That became a habit. At school, I excelled in mathematics and science. Teachers noticed. My parents rarely did. When a computer lab instructor allowed me to repair an old desktop that would no longer start, I stayed after school for 3 afternoons until I found the damaged power supply. The first time the machine came back to life, I felt something I rarely felt at home. Useful. Not entertaining. Not charming. Not easy to love. Useful. By high school, I had taught myself basic coding, using library books and free online forums. I repaired laptops for neighbors and built simple websites for local businesses. I saved every dollar. I wanted to leave Virginia, not because I hated my family, but because I needed to know who I was when no one was measuring me against Chloe. During my senior year, I applied to several universities. When the University of Texas offered me a scholarship to study software engineering, I read the acceptance letter 3 times in the school parking lot. That evening, I placed it beside my mother's dinner plate. She scanned the first paragraph. "That's very far away," she said. "I know. Who will help Chloe with her applications?" I looked across the table at my sister. Chloe had not completed a single application. My father cleared his throat. "Texas is expensive." "I received a scholarship." "That's good," he said, already returning to his food. My mother folded the letter and slid it back toward me. "Well, you've always been independent." It was intended as a compliment. Somehow, it felt like permission to stop expecting anything from them. 3 months later, I moved to Austin with 2 suitcases, a second-hand laptop, and $600. No one in my family came with me. My father said he could not leave work. My mother said Chloe had an important choir performance that weekend. At the airport, my mother hugged me briefly. "You'll be fine," she said. "You're the strong one." For years afterward, those words followed me. At first, I believed being strong meant never asking for help. Later, I would discover that my family had used my strength as an excuse to take from me. College was harder than I admitted to anyone back home. My scholarship covered tuition, but not everything else. I rented a small studio apartment near a bus route, worked evening shifts at a diner, tutored mathematics on weekends, and repaired computers whenever classmates could afford to pay me. Some nights, I studied until 2 in the morning and woke at 6 for class. I learned to stretch groceries across a week. I learned which campus buildings stayed warmest during winter so I could lower the heat in my apartment. I learned to sleep through noise, hunger, and exhaustion. Whenever my mother called, she talked mostly about Chloe. Chloe had decided college was not for her. She had returned home after 1 semester and announced that she was building a lifestyle brand online. My parents described every new idea as if it were the beginning of an empire. "She's designing jewelry now," my mother said once. 3 months later, Chloe was selling skincare products. Then she became a social media consultant. Then a wellness coach. None of the businesses lasted long, but each failure was treated as a brave experiment. When I struggled, it proved I was capable. When Chloe struggled, it proved she needed support. I stopped telling my family when things were difficult. Instead, I created a life in which difficulty had a purpose. My professors respected my discipline. I joined a competitive coding group and helped develop an accessibility tool for students with visual impairments. During my 3rd year, I earned a paid internship at a technology company in downtown Austin. For the first time, I did not need to calculate whether I could afford lunch. I called home that evening. My mother answered. "I got the internship," I said. "That's nice, honey." There was music in the background. "What's happening there?" "Chloe is recording a promotional video. She may have found an investor." The investor turned out to be a friend who had lent her $200. I did not mention the internship again. After graduation, the company hired me full-time. My parents did not attend the ceremony. My father said traveling would worsen his breathing. My mother said someone had to stay with him. Chloe posted a heart emoji beneath the photograph I uploaded online. I stood in my cap and gown with 2 friends and a professor. I smiled because I had earned the right to be proud, even if my family was not there to witness it. Over the next several years, I advanced steadily. I did not become wealthy overnight. I worked long hours, took difficult assignments, and accepted projects other people avoided. By 30, I was earning enough to pay my loans, maintain a modest apartment, and begin saving seriously. That was also when my father's health worsened. Years of exposure to fumes at the repair shop had damaged his lungs. He retired earlier than expected and began using several medications that were not fully covered by insurance. My mother reduced her work hours to care for him. One evening, she called and mentioned that they were behind on 2 bills. Her voice sounded embarrassed. I did not hesitate. I can help. No, Emily, you have your own life. I'm doing fine. Let me send something each month. My mother resisted at first, then offered a solution. Send it to Chloe. I frowned. Why? She handles things here. I don't understand all those banking apps, and your father hates giving information online. Chloe can withdraw the money and pay what needs to be paid. I could set up direct payments. That would be complicated. It isn't complicated. My mother's tone changed. Emily, please. I already have enough to manage. Chloe is here. She knows which bills are due. Behind her, I heard Chloe say something I could not understand. Then my mother added, she needs to feel useful too. That sentence should have made me pause. Instead, I agreed. I began with $1,000 a month. Within several months, the amount rose to $2,500 because my mother mentioned higher medical costs, home repairs, and an increase in their mortgage payment after an insurance adjustment. Every transfer went to Chloe's account. Every memo read, for Mom and Dad. At first, Chloe responded with messages. Got it. Paid everything. Dad's meds are covered. Don't worry about them. Eventually, the messages shortened to a thumbs-up symbol. I never demanded receipts. That was my first mistake. My second was assuming that because I would never steal from Chloe, she would never steal from me. The money affected my own life more than anyone knew. I delayed buying a home. I skipped vacations. I kept driving an aging car. I told myself my parents had spent years raising us and deserved security. When I called, my mother frequently praised Chloe. She took your father to the doctor. She handled the electric company. She bought groceries again. I assumed Chloe was using the money as intended, then performing the errands herself. It hurt that my parents believed the support came from her, but I convinced myself recognition was unnecessary. I was helping. That should have been enough. Then I met Ben. He worked in architectural design and possessed the calm patience of someone who listened before forming an opinion. When I told him about my family, I minimized everything. They're closer to Chloe, I said. She lives nearby. Ben never pushed, but he noticed patterns. He noticed that I became tense before calls with my mother. He noticed that I apologized whenever I spent money on myself. He noticed that I treated exhaustion as evidence of good character. One night, after I transferred an extra $1,200 for a roof repair, Ben asked whether I had seen the estimate. My mother told me what it cost. Did she send a document? No. Did Chloe? I shook my head. Ben did not accuse anyone. He only said, trust is healthy, blindness isn't. I defended my family. But several weeks later, my father mentioned during a phone call that the leak above the guest room was getting worse. I sat up. I thought the roof was repaired. There was a pause. My mother quickly answered from across the room. It was a temporary repair. We may need more work later. Her explanation sounded plausible. Still, something had shifted. For the first time, I began wondering where the money actually went. Once I allowed myself to question the transfers, inconsistencies appeared everywhere. Chloe's social media account was filled with photographs of expensive restaurants, weekend trips, spa visits, and designer accessories. She claimed her online business was improving. I wanted to believe her. But I understood numbers. Chloe had no employees, no registered company that I could find, and no consistent product. One month she promoted candles. The next, she claimed to be coaching women on financial independence. Her lifestyle was becoming more luxurious, while her business remained invisible. Then she bought a nearly new SUV. The photograph showed her standing beside it at a dealership, one hand raised in celebration. "Hard work pays off," she wrote. Ben saw the post over my shoulder. "I thought she was struggling with rent. She lives with my parents." "You know what I mean." I closed the application. "Maybe she got a loan." "With what income?" I did not answer. That weekend, I called my mother. "How are the bills?" "Fine. Chloe takes care of everything. Can you send me copies for my records?" The silence lasted only a second, but it was long enough to feel deliberate. "Why?" "I'm organizing my budget." "You don't trust us?" I didn't say that. My mother sighed. "Your father has enough stress. Please don't turn this into an accounting project. I send a significant amount every month, and we appreciate it." It was the first time she had directly acknowledged the money. Before I could ask what she meant, she corrected herself. "I mean, we appreciate that you care." Then, she changed the subject. For the next several weeks, I watched more carefully. I searched county records and discovered the mortgage payment had not increased as much as I had been told. I called the pharmacy with my father's permission and learned that his monthly out-of-pocket medication cost was several $100s, not nearly $1,000. I did not yet know what the utilities cost, but the total could not reasonably consume $2,500 every month. I considered confronting Chloe. Instead, I sent her a message. "Can you send me a breakdown of Mom and Dad's monthly expenses?" She replied almost immediately. "Busy right now. I'll do it later." 3 days passed. I asked again. She sent a photograph of a handwritten list. Mortgage, electric, water, medication, groceries, repairs. There were no amounts. When I requested numbers, she wrote, "Why are you suddenly acting like an auditor?" I stared at the message. "Because the money is mine," I typed. I deleted it before sending. Growing up, I had learned that direct questions created conflict, and conflict was always blamed on the person who named the problem. So, I waited. Then, a letter arrived at my Austin apartment from a bank I had never used. It thanked me for updating the contact information on my credit account. I assumed it was junk mail and almost threw it away. 2 days later, I received an email stating that a payment was overdue. The last 4 digits of the account meant nothing to me. I called the bank. After verifying my identity, the representative told me the account had been open for 17 months. The balance was slightly more than $5,000. My hands went cold. I never opened that card. The representative transferred me to the fraud department. The application had been submitted online using my full name, social security number, date of birth, and my parents' home address in Virginia. The contact email was not mine. The phone number ended in digits I recognized. Chloe's number. I did not accuse her immediately. I requested copies of the application and transaction records. The bank froze the account and told me I needed to file an identity theft report and place fraud alerts on my credit files. Ben found me at the kitchen table surrounded by notes. "What happened?" I turned the application toward him. He read it silently. "Chloe? I don't know." "You recognize the number?" "Yes. That means you know." I pressed my fingers against my temples. The purchases included boutique clothing, electronics, beauty subscriptions, and several payments to a car dealership. The same categories displayed across Chloe's social media account. I felt ashamed, though I had done nothing wrong. Shame often attaches itself to betrayal, because the victim begins reviewing every moment of trust as if trust itself were a mistake. "Ben sett beside me. You need to stop the transfers. My parents need help. You can help them directly." "My mother won't accept that." "Then she needs to explain why." I knew he was right. The following morning, I canceled the automatic payment scheduled for the next month. Then I contacted the 3 major credit reporting agencies, froze my credit, submitted an identity theft report, and opened a formal fraud dispute with the bank. The representative explained that the investigation could require a police report, especially if the person responsible was known to me. I hesitated when she asked whether I suspected anyone. "Yes," I finally said. "Who?" "My sister." Speaking the words aloud changed something. This was no longer family tension. It was a crime. Still, I did not call the police immediately. I wanted documentation. I wanted certainty. More than that, I wanted to understand whether my parents knew. My mother's birthday was 3 weeks away. I had already purchased plane tickets for Ben and me. I decided I would attend. I would bring every statement, every transfer, and every message Chloe had sent confirming that she had paid the bills. I would also bring the fraudulent credit application. But I would not reveal everything at once. First, I wanted to see what my family would say when they believed I knew nothing. Over the next 2 weeks, Chloe sent several unusual messages. The transfer didn't come through. Did your bank change something? Mom needs money for the electric bill. Then, Emily, this isn't the time to be selfish. I did not respond. My mother called twice. The first time, she asked whether my salary had changed. The second time, she said Chloe was under pressure and deserved more kindness. Neither of them asked whether I was okay. Neither asked why the money had stopped. Their concern was not for me. It was for the missing payment. 2 days before the trip, my father called privately. His voice was low. Your mother says there's some trouble with the money. I'm reviewing a few things. He coughed. Emily, I don't know much about the accounts. How much of the money I send do you receive? He was quiet. What money? I closed my eyes. That answer should have shocked me. Instead, it confirmed what I already feared. Before we ended the call, my father said something else. Your mother told me not to ask you about it. She said Chloe had everything handled. That was the first true warning that Chloe might not have been acting alone. Ben and I flew from Austin to Virginia on a Friday morning. I spent most of the flight reviewing the folder in my lap. 23 transfers totaled $57,500. Additional emergency payments brought the total to more than $62,000. I had highlighted every message from Chloe claiming the money had been used for our parents. Roof paid. Medication covered. Mortgage handled. I had also printed the fraudulent credit application and a preliminary statement showing purchases linked to the account. Ben watched me reorganize the pages for the third time. You don't have to prove your worth with paperwork, he said. This isn't about my worth. Part of it is. I looked toward the airplane window. Clouds stretched below us like an empty white field. I spent my whole life being told that Chloe cared more, I said. Even when I was paying for everything, I let them believe it. Why? Because correcting them would have sounded like asking for praise. Truth isn't praise. I knew that now. We rented a car at the airport and drove to a small hotel 40 minutes from my parents' house. We did not stay with my family. I told my mother the hotel was easier because Ben needed reliable internet for work. In reality, I needed somewhere to leave if the confrontation became unbearable. The birthday party was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. Before leaving the hotel, I placed the fraud documents in a leather folder and the bank statements in my handbag. I also carried my mother's gift, a digital photo frame that could receive pictures remotely. Months earlier, she had mentioned wanting to see more photographs from Austin. Part of me still wanted to make her happy. That embarrassed me more than anything. The house looked almost unchanged. The porch swing moved in the wind. White paint peeled near the steps. The flower beds were carefully maintained. But the roof above the guest room still had a dark water stain beneath the gutter. The repair I had supposedly funded had never happened. Chloe opened the door. She wore a fitted navy dress and a gold watch I had seen online. For half a second, fear crossed her face. Then she smiled brightly and hugged me. You made it. Of course. She greeted Ben warmly, as if she had not sent me an angry message 2 days earlier. Inside, relatives filled the living room and kitchen. Balloons hung from the ceiling. A banner read Happy 65th, Linda. My father sat near the window with an oxygen concentrator beside his chair. He looked thinner than the last time I had seen him. When I hugged him, he held me longer than usual. We need to talk later, he whispered. My mother appeared before I could answer. She embraced me, then glanced at my handbag. Everything all right with work? Yes. And the bank? I studied her expression. What about it? She looked away. Chloe said there had been some kind of delay. Before I could respond, an aunt called my mother into the kitchen. That brief exchange confirmed more than my mother intended. She knew the transfer had stopped. She also knew Chloe depended on it. The party unfolded like every family gathering I remembered. Chloe moved through the rooms collecting praise. She arranged food, refilled drinks, and told stories about the sacrifices she had made caring for our parents. No one asked who paid for anything. At one point, Uncle Mike raised a glass. "To Chloe," he said, "the daughter who stayed close and kept this family together." Everyone applauded. I looked at my father. He stared at the floor. My mother smiled, but her expression was strained. Then the gifts began. My mother opened scarves, candles, gardening tools, and framed photographs. I handed her the digital frame. She thanked me politely and set it aside. Then Chloe presented a small velvet box. Inside was a gold bracelet. My mother gasped. "Oh, Chloe, this must have cost too much." Chloe smiled. "You deserve it." I recognized the boutique logo inside the box. One of the fraudulent credit card charges had been made there 11 days earlier. The bracelet had likely been purchased in my name. My pulse slowed. Strangely, anger made everything clearer. My mother held up the bracelet while relatives admired it. Then she looked at me. "This is what it means to think about family," she said. "Chloe notices what people need. She sacrifices." The room became quieter. My mother continued. "You've built a wonderful career, Emily, but sometimes I wish you cared about us half as much as your sister does." Ben's hand tightened around his glass. Chloe lowered her eyes, but she did not correct our mother. She allowed the lie to stand because the lie had always benefited her. I rose from my chair. The scrape of wood against the floor silenced the room. "If Chloe is the one taking care of everything," I said, "then she can continue doing it." My mother frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I stopped sending money." A fork struck a plate somewhere behind me. Chloe's face drained of color. My mother looked first at Chloe, then at me. "This is not the time to discuss finances." That was not the response of a woman hearing unexpected information. It was the response of someone who feared exposure. I opened my handbag. For 23 months, I transferred $2,500 into Chloe's account. I sent additional money for Dad's medication, the roof, the heating system, and mortgage expenses. I placed the first stack of statements on the table. More than $2,000. My aunt leaned closer. Uncle Mike stopped holding his glass halfway to his mouth. My mother's lips parted. Chloe whispered, "Emily, don't." I looked at her. "Why not?" "You're embarrassing, Mom." "No, I'm identifying where my money went." My father stared at the statements. "I never knew," he said. My mother turned sharply toward him. "Robert, please." I heard the command inside her tone. My father ignored it. "She told me Chloe was handling some assistance," he said. "She never said it came from you." I looked at my mother. Her hands were trembling. "You knew I was sending money. I knew you helped sometimes." "Sometimes?" I held up the statements. "Every month." Chloe stepped forward. "We used it for the family." "Then show me the bills." Her mouth closed. I removed the printed messages. "You told me the roof was repaired. It isn't. You told me Dad's medication cost nearly $1,000 a month. It doesn't. You told me the mortgage increased by hundreds of dollars. It didn't." My relatives began murmuring. My mother's face hardened. "This could have been discussed privately." I asked privately. "You never gave us a chance to explain." "I gave you almost 2 years. Then I removed the final document. The credit card application. Chloe saw the bank's logo and stumbled backward. I placed it beside the statements. "This account was opened 17 months ago, using my identity. The phone number belongs to Chloe. The mailing address is this house." The room went completely silent. "The current balance is more than $5,000. The purchases include clothing, electronics, car payments, and the bracelet Mom is wearing." My mother looked down at her wrist, as if the gold had burned her. Chloe began crying. But the first person who spoke was my father. "Is that true?" Chloe covered her mouth. My mother stood. "Everyone needs to leave." "No," I said. "Not yet." She stared at me. I had never spoken to her that way. I had never needed to. Chloe used my identity. I continued. The bank has frozen the account. My credit is locked. A fraud investigation is open. Chloe shook her head rapidly. I was going to pay it back. With what money? She looked at my mother. That glance was small, but everyone saw it, and that was when the betrayal changed shape. My mother moved between Chloe and me. She made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting a payment, I said. Opening an account under someone else's identity requires several decisions. She was desperate. For what? My mother lowered her voice. Emily, enough. Chloe sank into a chair. Tears streaked her makeup. I didn't mean for it to get this far, she said. How far did you mean for it to go? I only used the card because I thought I could pay it off when my business improved. You used my social security number. You left documents here after college. The casualness of that explanation stunned me. She had found old tax or school records in our parents' house and treated them as an opportunity. My father pressed both hands against the arms of his chair. Where did the rest of the money go? Chloe looked at our mother again. Linda closed her eyes. That was the moment I knew. Not suspected. Knew. My voice became very quiet. Mom. She did not answer. How much did you know? Chloe began sobbing harder. Tell her, she whispered. My mother turned toward her. Chloe, stop. You said she could afford it. The room shifted. Several relatives looked from one woman to the other. I felt Ben move closer behind me, but he did not touch me. He understood I needed to stand on my own. I looked at Chloe. What did she say? Chloe wiped her face. She knew I kept some of it. My mother's voice sharpened. That isn't what happened. You told me it was fine, Chloe said. You said Emily was doing well and didn't need all that money. You said I was the one here, taking care of everyone. My mother shook her head. I said you could use a little for gas and expenses. You knew it was more than a little. How much? I asked. Neither answered. I opened the spreadsheet I had prepared. Based on the actual mortgage, medication, utilities, and grocery costs, Mom and Dad probably needed between $1,200 and $1,600 a month. I sent $2,500 plus emergencies. My father looked sick. So, nearly $1,000 a month was missing? Sometimes more, I said. Chloe spoke through tears. Mom said it balanced things. I stared at my mother. Balanced what? Linda's face crumpled, but even then, she tried to explain before apologizing. Chloe gave up opportunities to stay close. She did not give up opportunities. She chose not to work. She struggled differently than you. So you gave her my money. You were earning a good salary. That did not make it yours. I thought you would understand. The sentence struck harder than the theft. Not because it excused anything, but because I had heard versions of it my entire life. You're older. You're stronger. You can handle it. Chloe needs more. My mother had turned my independence into a resource the family could consume. You let me believe I was paying Dad's bills, I said. You were helping. You let Chloe take credit. She was the one doing the errands. You let her stand in this room while everyone called me selfish. My mother looked away. I stepped closer. You knew she was using my money, and you still compared me to her. I did not know about the credit card. Did you know she was spending the transfers on herself? I knew she kept some. Did you tell her to stop? Silence. Did you ever tell me? Silence again. My father turned toward my mother. Linda, how could you? She spun toward him. You were sick. The house was falling apart. Chloe was unstable. I was trying to keep everyone together. By lying to Emily, I did what I thought was necessary. My father's expression changed from confusion to disgust. No, you did what was easier. That was the first time in my life I heard him directly challenge her. My mother sat down. Around us, relatives shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided my eyes. Others looked at me with the shame of people realizing they had participated in a false story. Uncle Mike set down his drink. Emily, I'm sorry, he said. I didn't know. Aunt Deborah nodded. Neither did I. Their apologies mattered, but they could not erase years of laughter, comparisons, and public praise built on my silence. I turned to Chloe. The bank may require a police report. She looked up in terror. You wouldn't. You opened credit in my name. I'm your sister. You knew that when you used my identity. My mother stood again. Please don't involve the police. We can solve this as a family. You had 17 months to solve it as a family. Chloe rose unsteadily. I'll pay everything back. How? I'll get a job. You have said that before. I mean it. I believed she was afraid. I did not yet believe she had changed. I placed a second folder on the table. This contains the fraud documents and the transfer records. I am cooperating with the bank. I will not lie for you. If the bank or law enforcement asks whether I recognize the phone number, I will tell the truth. Chloe began crying again. My mother reached toward me. Emily, please. I stepped back. Do not ask me to protect the person who harmed me. I'm trying to protect both of you. No. You protected Chloe by sacrificing me. Her hand fell. I looked at my father. Do you have access to your own bank statements? He shook his head. Your mother handles most of it. I'll help you review them tomorrow if you want. He nodded. My mother whispered, You're tearing this family apart. I picked up my handbag. No, I'm refusing to hold together something that was built by erasing me. Ben gathered our coats. As we moved toward the door, Chloe called my name. I paused. I'm sorry, she said. Her voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard it. I looked at her. I believe you are sorry that the truth came out. She flinched. Whether you are sorry for what you did will be proven by what you do next. Outside, the evening air was cold. The porch swing creaked behind us. I had imagined I would feel triumphant after exposing the truth. Instead, I felt hollow. I had wanted my mother to discover that I was the daughter who had been helping all along. What I discovered was worse. She had already known. The next morning, my father called the hotel. He asked to meet without my mother or Chloe. Ben and I drove to a diner near the highway. Robert was already seated in a corner booth with an envelope in front of him. He looked exhausted. I brought what I could find, he said. Inside the envelope were mortgage statements, medical invoices, utility bills, and handwritten notes my mother had kept. We spent 2 hours reviewing them. The truth was complicated, but clear. My parents had genuinely needed help. My father's medical costs were significant, and several household repairs had been necessary, but not nearly $62,000 worth. A portion of my transfers had paid legitimate expenses. Another portion had covered groceries, fuel, and errands Chloe performed. The rest, more than $20,000 by our best estimate, had been used for Chloe's lifestyle, business attempts, car payments, and personal purchases. My mother had known enough to understand what was happening. She had not known every amount. That distinction mattered legally. It did not repair the emotional betrayal. My father rubbed his forehead. I should have paid more attention. You were ill. I still should have asked. I appreciated that he accepted responsibility without turning it into an excuse. Did Mom ever mention the credit card? No. I believe her when she says she didn't know about that. He nodded slowly. What are you going to do? The bank is investigating. They may remove the debt from my credit file, but they'll want documentation. I filed an identity theft report. If they require a police report, I'll make one. He looked frightened for Chloe. But he did not ask me to lie. That mattered. I don't want her life destroyed, I said, but I won't let mine be damaged to protect her. That's fair. It isn't revenge. I know. We established immediate changes. My father and mother would open a new household account together. Both would have access. I would not send another dollar until their finances were reviewed transparently. Any future help would go directly to specific expenses or into the account after I received copies of the bills. Chloe would no longer manage their money. When my father returned home, he planned to tell my mother that those terms were not negotiable. Ben and I flew back to Austin that evening. For the next 3 weeks, I did not answer family calls unless they concerned my father's health or the fraud investigation. Silence felt different when I chose it. It was no longer the silence of a child afraid to upset the room. It was space. The bank contacted me several times. Investigators confirmed that the account had been accessed from devices and locations connected to Chloe. The email used in the application contained a version of her business name. The evidence was overwhelming. Chloe eventually signed a written admission through the bank's process. She acknowledged opening and using the account without my permission. Because the amount was relatively limited, she cooperated, and I was willing to support restitution rather than the harshest possible outcome. The matter moved toward a repayment arrangement. I still filed the required report and refused to misrepresent what happened. The fraudulent balance was removed from my responsibility while the investigation proceeded. My credit files remained frozen. Chloe was required to repay the debt and any associated costs. The money she had taken from my transfers was a separate matter. I told my parents I would not pursue a civil claim immediately if Chloe provided a complete accounting and began restitution. That decision was not forgiveness. It was a conditional opportunity. My mother called after 3 weeks. "Can we meet?" she asked. I almost refused. Then she said, "I want to come to Austin. You shouldn't have to travel again." It was the first time she had offered to enter my life rather than summon me back into hers. We met at a quiet restaurant near my apartment. She looked older than she had at the party. No makeup, no carefully arranged hair, no audience. She placed her handbag beside her and folded her hands. "I failed you," she said. "I waited. I let myself believe that because you were successful, taking from you would hurt less." I said nothing. I was afraid Chloe would leave if I pushed her too hard. She was always restless, always starting something and falling apart when it failed. Having her near made me feel less alone while your father was sick. "So you paid her to stay with my money." My mother winced. "When you say it that way, what other way is there?" She looked down. "There isn't one." That answer was more honest than anything she had said at the party. "I convinced myself she deserved compensation for helping," she continued. Then the amounts grew. I knew she was buying things. I knew she was letting people think the support came from her. Every time I thought about telling you, I felt ashamed. But you continued comparing me to her. Tears filled her eyes. "Yes. Why?" She struggled to answer. "Finally," she said, "because admitting what you were doing would have forced me to admit what I had allowed. The cruelty had not been accidental. It had been defensive." She diminished me because my generosity exposed her choices. I leaned back. "I need you to understand something. I am not returning to the old family structure. I know. No more comparisons. You don't praise Chloe by insulting me. You don't praise me by insulting Chloe." She nodded. "You and Dad will manage your own finances. If I help, I will see exactly where the money goes. Yes, Chloe cannot live there indefinitely without contributing. She applied for jobs. She needs to keep one." My mother nodded again. Then I said the hardest part. "I may never trust you the way I did before." Her tears fell. "I understand." "No, I don't think you do. You were my mother. I spent years hoping you would finally notice me. You noticed. You simply decided my needs mattered less." She covered her mouth. For once, I did not comfort her. Remorse belonged to the person who caused the harm. I did not have to carry that too. Before we left, my mother asked whether she could hug me. I said no. Her face tightened, but she accepted it. That was the first boundary she respected. Chloe found a job at an auto repair shop 2 towns away from our parents' home. She worked at the front desk, scheduled appointments, managed inventory, and processed invoices. It was not glamorous, and it did not match the image she had curated online. For the first month, she posted nothing about it. Then she sent me a photograph of her employee badge. "First honest paycheck in a long time," she wrote. I did not answer immediately. Eventually, I replied, "Keep going." She began making monthly restitution payments. Part went toward the fraudulent credit account. Part went into a separate ledger for the money taken from my transfers. The amounts were small. The consistency mattered more. My parents opened a new household account. My father learned to check it online. My mother sent copies of bills before asking for help. I paid 1 medical invoice directly and refused 2 requests that were not essential. No one accused me of selfishness. The family adjusted because I stopped absorbing the consequences of everyone else's choices. Several months later, my father invited Ben and me to visit. I agreed, but we stayed at a hotel again. The first evening was awkward. My mother did not compare us. Chloe did not dominate the conversation. My father asked about my work and listened to the answer. It should not have felt extraordinary. It did. On Sunday afternoon, Chloe found me sitting beneath the old sycamore tree in the backyard. She carried 2 cans of soda and offered me one. I accepted it. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "Mom compared me to you too." I looked at her. "Not in front of people," she continued. She praised me publicly. But when we were alone, she said I would never be as disciplined as you, that I wasn't smart enough to survive on my own, that without my personality, I had nothing. I studied her face. For most of my life, I had assumed Chloe possessed the love I had been denied. Now I understood that what she possessed was approval with conditions. She had to remain charming, dependent, and close. I had to remain strong, useful, and undemanding. Neither of us had been loved freely. That did not erase what Chloe had done, but it explained the hunger behind it. "I used to hate when people mentioned your career," she said. "Mom would tell everyone I was the heart of the family, then tell me privately that you were the one who would actually become something. So, you wanted to prove you were successful?" "Yes. With my money." Her eyes filled. "Yes. And when that wasn't enough, you used my identity." She looked down. "I don't have an excuse." "Good." She nodded. "I thought if I looked successful, Mom would stop worrying about me." Then the lies got bigger. Every time people praised me, I knew it wasn't real, so I needed more praise. "That is not something I can fix for you." "I know. Neither can Mom." "I know that too." The wind moved through the tree branches. Chloe opened her soda. "I'm seeing a counselor," she said. That surprised me. "Mom suggested it?" "No, my manager did. I had a panic attack after the bank investigator called." I waited. "I'm not telling you because I want credit," she added quickly. "I just want you to know I'm trying." I believed that she was trying. Trust, however, was not restored by effort alone. It required time, consistency, and the willingness to accept that the person harmed might never return to the old relationship. "I don't forgive you yet," I said. "I know. I may never fully forgive you." "I know. But I don't hate you." She looked at me. That seemed to hurt more than anger. "I hated myself enough for both of us," she said. I did not reassure her. "Instead," I said, "then become someone you can live with." She nodded. We sat beneath the tree until the light began to fade. For the first time, we were not competing. We were 2 women looking honestly at what our family had made of us and deciding whether we wanted to remain that way. Healing did not arrive as a dramatic reunion. There was no tearful embrace. No promise that everything would return to normal. Normal had been the problem. What came instead was slower. Chloe kept working. My mother stopped making comparisons, sometimes catching herself before the words escaped. My father became more involved in the household finances and apologized whenever he realized how often his silence had enabled our mother's decisions. Ben and I continued building our life in Austin. A year after the birthday party, we bought a small house with a garden courtyard. It was not large. It was ours. The mortgage advisor who handled our application confirmed that the fraudulent account had been removed from my credit history. Chloe continued paying restitution. On the evening we received the keys, Ben stood with me, in the empty living room. "You did this," he said. "We did." "No," he replied. "I'm part of it now. But you built the foundation long before I arrived." I thought about the girl who had crossed the country with 2 suitcases and $600. For years, I had believed strength meant carrying everything alone. Ben taught me that strength could also mean allowing safe people to help. Ben proposed in our garden on an ordinary Tuesday evening. There were no photographers, no audience, and no elaborate display. He placed a small ring in my hand and said, "I want a life where neither of us has to disappear for the other." That was the most romantic promise I had ever heard. We planned a small wedding in Austin. My parents and Chloe were invited, but their presence came with expectations. There would be no speeches about family sacrifice, no rewriting the past, no comparaison. My mother agreed immediately. Chloe asked whether I truly wanted her there. "I want you there if you can be there as my sister," I said. Not as the hero of a story you need everyone to believe. She understood. The ceremony took place in a courtyard surrounded by rosemary, white roses, and warm autumn light. I wore a simple ivory dress. Before walking outside, I fastened a bracelet engraved with the words, "You are more than enough." Ben had given it to me the night before. My father waited near the garden entrance. "I don't assume I'm walking you down the aisle," he said. The old version of our family would have treated the role as his right. The man standing before me understood that it was a privilege. "I'd like you to walk beside me," I said. "Not give me away. Walk beside me." His eyes filled. We entered the courtyard together. My mother sat in the second row. Chloe sat beside her, wearing a modest blue dress. Neither tried to attract attention. When I reached Ben, the rest of the world seemed to quiet. Our vows were brief. I promised honesty without cruelty. He promised loyalty without control. We both promised never to confuse love with self-erasure. After the ceremony, my father gave me a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. He apologized for every time he had remained silent because confrontation felt uncomfortable. He wrote that passivity had not made him innocent. It had merely made my mother's favoritism easier to continue. I folded the letter carefully. "I'm working on forgiving you," I said. He nodded. "That's more than I deserve." My mother approached later. She did not give a speech. She did not cry loudly or ask anyone to admire her remorse. She simply said, "You look happy." "I am. I'm glad." That was all. It was enough. During dinner, I overheard Chloe speaking with one of Ben's relatives. For one tense second, I expected to hear the old story that she had stayed behind and carried the family while I built a comfortable life far away. Instead, she said, "Emily supported our parents for years. I took advantage of her. I'm still trying to repair what I damaged." The relative looked surprised. Chloe continued speaking before I could move away. "She was always the strongest person in our family. We used that as a reason to demand more from her. I'm learning that strong people still deserve protection." I stepped behind the garden arch before she saw me. My eyes filled with tears. Not because everything was repaired. It was not. But for the first time, Chloe had told the truth when lying would have made her look better. That was change. Later, as the music softened and guests began leaving, Chloe approached me. "I made the final payment on the credit restitution last week," she said. "I received the notice. I still owe you for the transfers." "Yes, I'll keep paying." "I know." She looked toward our mother. "She's different. So are you. Do you trust me?" I considered the question. More than I did last year. A sad smile crossed her face. "That's fair." I did not offer complete forgiveness. She did not demand it. We hugged briefly. It was not the embrace of sisters pretending the past had vanished. It was the embrace of two people acknowledging that a future remained possible. That night, Ben and I returned to our hotel. I removed my wedding dress, sat beside the window, and opened the journal I had kept since college. For years, I had filled its pages with plans, budgets, private disappointments, and achievements I had not felt safe sharing with my family. I turned to a blank page. "Dear Mom, today I married a man who sees me clearly. For most of my life, I believed love was something I had to earn by giving more than everyone else, asking for less, and staying silent when I was hurt. I know better now. Love does not require one person to become invisible so another can shine. Strength is not endless tolerance. Peace is not the absence of confrontation. Sometimes peace begins when the truth is finally spoken, and the people who benefited from silence are forced to face it. I no longer need to be the favorite. I no longer need to prove that I was the good daughter. I know what I gave. I know what I survived. I know who I am. I hope our family continues changing, but my happiness no longer depends on it." I closed the journal. Ben sat beside me. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about the birthday party, the bank statements, the fraudulent account, my mother's confession, Chloe's restitution, and the long road between exposure and accountability. "Visible," I said. He took my hand. For years, I had believed my family could erase me by refusing to recognize what I did. But worth does not disappear because other people refuse to acknowledge it. Truth remains true without applause. I had not become louder. I had not become cruel. I had simply stopped allowing silence to be used against me. Emily's story was not about $62,000. The money exposed the betrayal, but the deeper wound had begun years earlier every time she was told to sacrifice because she was stronger, every time Chloe was praised using Emily as a comparison, and every time silence was mistaken for permission. Chloe's actions were wrong. Her insecurity did not excuse theft, identity fraud, or years of dishonesty. Linda's fear of losing her younger daughter did not give her the right to exploit her older one. Robert's silence did not absolve him from responsibility. Yet accountability did not require revenge. Emily protected her credit, documented the fraud, stopped the transfers, established financial transparency, and allowed consequences to occur. She did not rescue Chloe from the discomfort necessary for change. She also did not make hatred the center of her future. Forgiveness, where it appeared, arrived slowly and conditionally. The family did not return to normal, because normal had depended on Emily remaining invisible. Instead, they attempted to build something more honest. The lesson is simple but difficult. Being the strong person in a family does not mean accepting unlimited harm. Love without boundaries becomes exploitation. Silence that protects lies is not peace. Sometimes the most powerful thing a person can say is not a threat or an insult. It is simply, no more. And sometimes the greatest victory is not watching others fall. It is finally building a life in which their approval is no longer required.